Hey, hello, and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and we have another milestone. We're episode 275, which means not long from now we'll be at that episode 300 number. All thanks to my listeners who send in these great questions each and every week for me. If you have questions, you send them to the podcast, and here is our address, podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer each and every one. And let's get started with a question from Brandon. And it's a long introduction and then a pretty simple answer. Longtime listener to the podcast and forum participant. He's over at the forum at danjohnuniversity.com. Great forum. And if you're in there, in fact, the answer is going to be, if I don't have it there, I'll make sure it gets there ASAP. I got a lot of value communicating with other like-minded folks, and your amount of personal participation on the forum is surprising, as you seem to pop into many threads with insights and encouragement. I do my best, I really do. Posted on the forum the other day, I was mentioning that lifting outside will become not possible due to winter and snow in Colorado in a few short months. Same here in Utah. It's cold. Yeah, it is. And you can already see the effects of it on me. The winter is coming. Footnote, and copyright that. I was wondering what an in-season skiing maintenance barbell complex program might look like. I have kettlebells, but I just love the barbell so much. Caveat, I am 6 feet tall, and snatching or dropping the weights overhead is a non-starter, as my apartment ceiling is too low. I think I can press with 5 and maybe 10-pound plates, but full-sized ones are too big. I'm familiar with the snatch complex warm-up with easy strength for fat loss with Olympic lifting, and have your list of complexes. Any suggestions on which set of complexes to string together to make a program? I hear there are some in Mass Made Simple program as well. I'll have to check it out. Good question. So we're looking for a barbell complex that with low ceilings. Obviously, the overhead family is going to not be part of it. There's a couple things you can't do. Another one I would not suggest doing. I don't know if you notice in complexes, but I only try to have, for those who've never done a complex, you take a barbell or kettlebell, and you never put the load down, but you just move from exercise to exercise to exercise. It sounds like circuit training, but you never put the load down. One of the issues that you'll have doing complexes, like for example, if I'm doing military presses followed by front squats, that's easy. Bar comes down, I go. But if I say front squats followed by behind the neck press or back squat, well, I got to get the barbell back there. So you'll notice a lot of my complexes will have military and various jerks in the middle of a complex. That's really to get the bar back and forth. My thought was this. Okay, I would say personally that the overhead and the Olympic lifts are out and shifting to the back. So you're going to have just a couple of things, but I don't think they're bad. If you know how to do a Romanian deadlift correctly, I think that's a great exercise. The snatch complex I have my throwers use. We do Romanian deadlift followed by high pull followed by snatch. We can't snatch. So you can either deadlift, I would always say in your case, deadlift first and row last. So deadlift, slide over, and now it can be a barbell from the ground deadlift or a variation. If you do want to add Romanian deadlifts, so deadlift from the floor, RDLs, a power clean, or which I think is a great exercise in the middle of this, a front squat, and just to make life terrible, throw a row at the end of that. That's not bad. I think it's going to help you a lot. It is hinge heavy. If that's too complicated, we could even just go deadlift, high pull, one power clean, front squat row, or you could go deadlift, high pull, power clean, front squat row. You can do it. You can make up some other ideas too. The nice thing about that is it seems to me like something I've seen other people do. I'm going all the way back to the 70s with a program I got from a Nebraska thrower who used warm-up complexes just like we used to when I was younger. And it sounds just about what that one is. I don't have the materials anymore but it sounds like it was the right one. Hey, good luck on that. And play around with your own variations and get back to me. I think I do have all the complexes listed on the danjohnuniversity.com. One thing I do recommend when you make a complex, and this is for everybody, always, I use a really big font and I blow up the complex so it can sit on the ground, and then I put them in those plastic folders I use everything for. So it can sit on the ground, so all you have to do is look down and you got it right there. Thank you. Hey, so we got a question from Neil, and it's going to sound a little different, but I like it. I have a question that has been answered on this podcast over 1 billion times. I haven't been counting, but that sounds right. It's about how to blend kettlebells and barbells, but not necessarily from an exercise selection or a programming perspective, because that's what's bothering me. When I did exclusively kettlebells coming into and out of the pandemic, I looked the best, moved the best, and felt the best I ever did. And if you know anything about my work and my sense of humor, I always say the sentence, and it worked so well, we stopped doing it. Kettlebells are not anywhere near as exciting to me as the big power lifts and big Olympic lifts. What advice do you have for someone who knows what's good for them, but doesn't necessarily want to take their medicine? You know what? I don't know why you have to think you have to choose either or. Because if you like the Olympic lifts, I Olympic lift, and I use kettlebells in my warm-up. I use hinge variations. For most of you would think kettlebell swings, but I also do those Bulgarian goat bag swings because I think that preps me a little bit better for my Olympic lifts. I do that goblet squat into the overhead squat drill, which I think this is good for anything. Well, maybe at my age, maybe at your age, for improving your overhead squat mobility. If you wanted, for example, I think one of the weaknesses of kettlebells is our deadlift variations in the kettlebell aren't very good. And I know I can go online and there's 1,000 exercises, but really, even if you have a massive kettlebell, the biggest kettlebell on the planet, it's not, a typical barbell set is much, much heavier than that. So in the deadlift variation, squat variation, and of course the bench press, they're hard to mimic with kettlebells, but kettlebells are great support. I love that single, so it's the one-arm bench press, the single-arm bench press. I think that's one of the best whole body exercises I've ever done. Interesting is if you do it right, you'll understand why I said that. But if you leave this hand free, as that load comes down, you counter it so hard, every muscle in the big X of your body has to light up. You know that kettlebells are good for you, but you like barbells. I think, I wouldn't say you need medicine. I just think you need to make sure you do both. If you're not that far away, we're online, we can talk about all these things, but you'll notice a lot of people who trend more in my direction about equipment. Basically, I see equipment as a toolkit. I would not, even though I think very highly of kettlebells and I think very highly of barbells, I would never, say anything else is bad or good. Every piece of equipment you can find is really, really good for what the job it's supposed to do. The ab wheel is wonderful for what the ab wheel does. And they cost, $5-10 every January over at this place near my house. So I would give yourself a little smile and keep going, because I like what you're doing here. I think there's some wisdom there. And folks, I got to tell you from the heart, barbells and kettlebells, to quote Forrest Gump, they're like peas and carrots, okay? They really do work well together. And I'm not sure why certain wings of the kettlebell world think barbells are worthless and certain wings of the barbell world think kettlebells are worthless. Both have great value. And Neil, do the kettlebells 2-3 days a week and then go to the gym or whatever you got and get yourself a really good barbell workout or flip it any way you want. Interesting question. Thank you so much. Jeff asked a question I'm a little I'm not sure I can answer, but let's go with it. Jeff says this: I was wondering what exercises, movements you think are best for someone with osteoarthritis seeking hip, low back pain relief. And would it depend upon their training age, true novice versus lifelong warrior? Well, Stu McGill, I really think is one of the greatest minds in the world for backs. So I don't want to give you any medical advice. All I can tell you is that Stu has those exercises called the Big Three. I got to tell you one thing. If you think you're tough, do that side plank of his. His curl up is what we call a reverse cobra here in our gym. And by the way, the reverse curl, the reverse cobra, the curl up has been foundationally changing my body. I think it's a game changer. But you asked specifically about exercises and movement. So McGill's Big Three, I think you want to really spend some time there. Boom. Okay. When it comes to exercises, I'm going to give you one answer, but I worry about giving you any medical advice. The answer is the suitcase carry. That's when you have a load in one hand, in suitcase style, and you walk down and back or around your block. You can use a lot more weight than what people use online. You can really go heavy. My discus throwers, my female athletes use a lot of weight on this. And you'll be shocked at how knitted you have to be to do this correctly. With a back injury, so much of it has to also be that you know how to brace, when to brace. The upside of the suitcase carry is every single step is it's very much like Tim Anderson's original strength. I'm watching my granddaughter, and she's doing this thing called tummy time. And when they do tummy time, they struggle so hard in the beginning to pick their head up and look, get around. And then in a few weeks, boom, it pops up. And that's what Tim calls, and that's part of it, but it's that reflexive strength that it's, we're born with it, but then we do have to, train it, practice it so we can utilize it to do different things. Suitcase carries are a great way, I think, of retraining the body to get that brace every single step. And I think this is a wonderful exercise. Jeff, I'm a little concerned about giving you medical advice, but so whatever you can do with backs, I'm working with a person right now, hurt their back, and I don't think it was exercise. It was a stressful couple of months, and then the back, for those of you who've ever been under a lot of stress, emotional stress, financial stress, it's weird how very often the end of that is a back injury. And I'm sure some people are saying, nah, that's just nonsense, but I see it a lot. Well, when you're working with somebody who's got mid-back cramping, mid-back pain, everything hurts. So what we try to do is find things that help. So McGill's Big Three, suitcase carry. And then if I was going to give you the secret that I help people with bad backs, it would be the following thing. And I stole it from Stu's book, The Gift of Injury. Either before dinner or after dinner. After dinner gives you a boost, also with your glucose and all that. But go for a walk. Try just a 10-minute walk after each and every meal, and just see how that helps. How it helps you. Having arthritis in the low back and hips, that's some serious stuff, and I would like you to make sure you get that looked at. Okay. All right, thank you so much, Jeff. Jake asked a good question, and it's interesting sometimes in the comments section of anything you'll see people start to say how old they are and wonder, how am I to get over this? So there is a little bit of age in this question, but let's listen to this. I'm a 42-year-old male doing what you suggest at this age, which is to get as strong as I can. Yeah, I think that's great advice between 35 and 55. That is your health span insurance policy. I know that for the next phase of my life, around a decade from now, you recommend focusing more on hypertrophy. I would like your advice, insight on the following. How rapidly did your own personal strength decline once you hit 50 plus years? Was it something steep or linear, gradual, or whatever? Well, the hardest thing for me, my friend, is that, I compete as an Olympic lifter, Jake, so, I can actually see it in my results. I have a piece of paper in here that Dave Turner put together for me, and it's kind of a cool list. He has all my Utah State weightlifting records, so every time I ever broke a state record. And you'll see when I first started competing here in the state in 80, my numbers are good, and then in the late 80s, early 90s, my numbers were really good, and then I got to tell you, if there was a line in the sand for my strength declining, let's say I would have turned 50 in 2007 is when I turned 50, huh? And in 2007, I was just off some of the best years I ever had in my throwing career. 2007, 2008, I still was a pretty good force in Highland Games. 2009, 2010, I really started to get that symptoms from that pistol grip hip I have. And then I had to get that, the 2 hip replacements because of a genetic condition called pistol grip hips, but I look at my lifting numbers in those workouts in my early 50s, and then a decade later, 2017. And I wouldn't say it's a steep decline. Jim Schmitz has the best. He's our old Sports Pals head Olympic coach, and he was head of our Olympic teams for a long time. He says that masters of weightlifting is a farewell tour, and you snatch a weight, the crowd claps, and then you say farewell because you'll never see that lift again. There's some truth to that. I would like to say for me it was gradual as I look, because I have to look through it from your question from the prism of 17 years. So even though when I look at my journals, it is not steep. But when I look in here inside my head, it feels like it was just, it was just right off a cliff. It is gradual. I do think there's real value in keeping journals and stuff so you can keep an eye on things. But there are certain things I pretty much know I just don't have the ability to do ever again. And it's not bad or good. It's just the truth. Then the other questions. What advice would you give regarding pure strength maintenance after transitioning to more hypertrophy-based work later in life? For example, how often would you suggest I implement a strength-focused program or test my max lifts? Okay, so let's answer that question. Well, this brings me back to this concept I have called park bench and bus bench training. I would suggest that, probably about 8 months of the year, you should just do general training and enjoy it. The other 4 months of the year, you can I usually think about 8 weeks is about all most people can do. Put yourself in a minor peaking program, a little program, a 2-month, and then test your strength in these. So, you're going to go 4 months of just, you go to the gym, you work all your body parts, you do the exercises you love, your reps, your sets, your loads are appropriate, you go for walks, you get your sleep in. And then after about 4 months of that, you say, okay, these next 2 months, I want to test myself in 8 weeks on, your own personal challenge, the Jake decathlon or something, and come up with, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 10 lifts that you just want to test yourself on, and make a program that, leaves you fresh and hungry and ready to go and test yourself. The day that test is over, the next time you go to the gym, you're back to all that fun general training stuff. Basically, that's how I do it. If you see me train certain times of the year, I snatch, I clean and jerk, I front squat, and I press, and I walk, and I don't do anything else. An Olympic lifting meet comes by, you come to the gym the next week, and I'll be doing suspension training stuff, I'll be doing kettlebells, I'll be doing some kind of bodybuilding press workout, I'll be, playing around with some ideas with Mike, lots of hip thrusts or whatever it is. That's how I think you should do it. Now, over time, you might want to shift over to because of your, the way that things work. If you do 10 months of just general stuff and 2 months of focus, that's fine. But I would keep an eye on kind of over chasing either side. I like the idea of 4 months of just general training, but if you feel like cutting that back and even up the year, that's your call, and I'm fine with that too. Our last question here. Lastly, what percentage of pure strength from one's peak should we aim or expect to keep as the decades go, assuming good health? The research from the German studies of the 50s and 40s, published in English in 1961, The Physiology of Strength, brilliant book. It shows that a person who trains versus an untrained person, they both go through and have the same basic decline as the years start to trend after, anywhere. And it's hard because some people it's 35 and others it's 55. But, you can start to see that drop. When I talk to people, like I've got two good friends who still lift weights in their 90s, Dick and Merrill. And Merrill will be, he was just completely honest with me the other day. And I got to tell you, he was kind of sad about it. Merrill's 91. And he goes, I just can't get over the amount of maintenance I have to do for my body every day. And I thought to myself, okay, so he spends a lot of time doing floor exercises and mobility and flexibility exercises. He swims. He uses machines for circuit training. But his point is important to make sure you hear, is he also has to do with just a lot of general maintenance work. My thought is what I'm trying to do, so I'm decades younger than him. I'm 67, he's 91. I'm already taking his advice. By the way, it's really important, I think, to listen to successful older people in all areas of life. You'll be surprised what kind of people you don't see at the senior center. You can make some bad choices, and it's really hard to overcome that. So that's why I'm really extending and expanding the amount of original strength I do every day. I sauna and do seated original strength, and then I go over there on those. I have mats down the hall here, and I do a whole bunch there. Between sets of my lifting, I do original strength and mobility work. And for me, I know you asked about strength, but I think if you take care of your mobility, you keep an eye on your flexibility. You keep an eye on obviously your heart health, your dental health, hearing, your sleep quality. I think we call it sleep hygiene now. What you're putting in your gut, what's coming out of you. If you keep an eye on those things and you make relatively good decisions, and whenever I say something like that, I should add the two words "for me." So. For you, Jake, when you're thinking about your dietary interventions, you might say, well, for me, this is what I think is a healthy diet. This is what makes me feel good, move good, good. When I give advice, I have to remind myself what I think of as a healthy diet is what I think of as a healthy diet for me, my family, my athletes. Not everyone listening has that same you don't have the same toolkit I have for cooking or shopping. You don't have, I don't know. I have to be careful because what I think of as a normal meal makes some people go, what are you doing? Very often for breakfast, I'll have scrambled eggs, kimchi, yogurt with this overnight oats with lots of seeds I make, and I make a smoothie with vanilla protein and lots of berries. Well, when people see the kimchi, they always go, ugh. But for me and a whole bunch of people on the planet, kimchi just is wonderful. So take care of those things more than you get. First off, keep an eye on your sleep, keep an eye, wear your seatbelt, all that stuff. Keep an eye on those things because it's a lot easier for you to catch cancer earlier than later. It's going to be a lot easier for you to not slide into type 2 diabetes if you can control it, with diet and exercise. You'll be a lot happier to, take care of your hearing loss earlier than later if these are issues. When it comes to strength, you are going to decline, but I got to tell you, Charles Euster, he was a competitive bodybuilder. He died a few years ago, but even into his late 90s, he was still sprinting and bodybuilding. And I think you're, it's doubtful in your 90s you're going to compete at the Division I college level sprints, but it doesn't mean you can't be on the track. And so the thing is, I don't really have numbers, but what I do have is this: take care of those boring, go to the dentist 3 times a year, go to the eye doctor once a year, get a full general checkup once a year, including blood tests. And if you haven't, do it. Because before, it's like that discussion this shows up a lot. In the comments the last few months, it showed up about you should, improve your VO2 max. Again, I agree, it's a great idea. So what is your VO2 max? Well, I don't know. Then why are we talking about improving something you don't know? I don't mean, just go down the list. There's so many things that happen that we don't measure first. There is a test that a lot of people use for VO2 max. It comes from Ken Cooper, who gave us the word aerobics. And it's you go to the track and how far can you go run in 12 minutes? Well, I coach high school. And if I took my PE class out to the track and I said, okay, I'm going to see how far you can all run in 12 minutes. First off, I'd probably get 300 parent calls. And then I would say half the student body couldn't run without stopping for 12 minutes. A lot of them would dog it. A lot of them would cheat. If I can't get teenagers to run 12 minutes, how am I supposed to get untrained 60-year-olds to run 12 minutes? So I think we have to be careful about all these things. Take care of yourself, even by just asking this question. I think you're going to be okay. And good luck to you. I like this. I made a commitment to dance at my granddaughter's weddings, and I've got another my daughter Kelly's going to have another baby here soon, and so for me, as much as I'd love to keep throwing those big weights over my head, I also have other things I want to be around for. So go to the dentist, I go to the doctor, I do all these things, and I keep an eye on all kinds of stuff. But I also think what's going to keep me around long enough for those weddings and those dancing is I'm going to keep striving to stay as strong as I can, as long as I can. Thank you. John asked this: do you think it's possible to train for a masterclass natural bodybuilding show with just kettlebells and body weight exercises? If not, what additional exercises, barbell machines would you add? Well, so could you compete at the master level with just calisthenics? Let's even go there. See, I would argue, yeah, you could, if it's natural, of course. My buddy who was a bodybuilder once said, I said, how can you enter natural competitions? And he goes, oh, for those I take less drugs than normal. Oh, okay. If you can find a competition, a true naturals masters competition, if you can just dial in your posing and your body fat percent, I think you're going to be pretty close to being able to step right up on the platform. Now, when you're working with calisthenics, there's lots of value. Bodybuilders, if anyone actually read Arnold's The Education of a Bodybuilder and followed his advice, he recommends 6 months of doing calisthenics 3 days a week. Of course, no one who read the book ever did that. But there's great value in calisthenics. I mean, they're wonderful. Yeah, there is a problem. The problem is load. As you hit, once you can do, I once had an athlete of mine. There are freaks in nature, folks. He popped up on the pull-up rack and did 66 pull-up, dropped down, shook out his arms, and then got to 100. Some people are just better, okay? Just, you got to get used to that. When you move over to the kettlebell family, now I'm actually kind of excited in thinking about what you can do, because I think if you're doing double kettlebell front squats and the military press, heck, the armor building formula, I mean, I hate to say this about, but that might be a really good foundation. High rep presses and the armor building complex, that's going to help you out. Now, why would you want the barbell is, of course, I think you can take care of a lot of your total human muscle by just doing the basics of kettlebells. But there are a few body parts that get ignored. Of course, this comes up all the time. The chest exercises, that's going to be enormous. And I do think that, the kettlebell clean is an ideal bicep exercise. And I think that the single arm press is an amazing deltoid tricep exercise. But will you get the pump that is very important as part of bodybuilding? There's, in the armor building formula, I think I go into some depth on how to build muscle, and there's, I can teach it in a lecture, but it's hard for me to remember all the details. But you want to get up to high as 20 reps to build up muscle. Well, certainly you can do it with kettlebells, but doing leg extension, leg curl, pec deck, the curl, the bicep machine, the tricep machine, it's going to add a lot of value. Could you still compete with just kettlebells? I imagine you could, because remember, so much of it is, that's DNA is huge, but leaning out, getting the right tan, and the posing. I would hire someone who's done it before, because there are some steps, there are some things that bodybuilders do to compete that really are staggering. The deficit of calories is, and working so hard with almost nothing in your system. I mean, it's pretty amazing to watch it happen. So let me know what you do. And if you do compete, send along some pictures, okay? Thank you. And good luck. So to kick back in, I think you can get a lot of work done with calisthenics. I think kettlebells are a good addition, but I think you're going to want to use machines. Now, when I said machines, I sort of kind of backdoor in include barbells, but it'll be a fun experiment to do it, and let me know how it goes. We have a question from Bob. I'm wondering if you could extend upon how you would seasonally develop the double kettlebell clean and press and double kettlebell front squat from a sets rep point of view, using your previously outlined guidance of fall, a structured program, winter, go heavy, go hard, go home, spring is hypertrophy, summer is brief complexes and circuit training. That's good. Yeah, well, I mean, let's just throw this. I think only having the two lifts is going to be really relatively impossible for me to answer, but let's go. Fall armor building program. The armor building formula available at armorbuildingformula.com. I think that's a winner. And you might as well pick up my new book. It's over on Amazon. It's a paperback. The Kettlebell Workout Companion, because there's a lot of workouts in there. And I do have some monthly and longer programming in there. So the fall's easy, ABF. Okay, winter, go heavy, go hard, go home. One of the ones that I seems to come up every year is the 10,000 swing challenge. It's weird because it's not that heavy, but man, it's hard. And as you get better and better at it, your 500 daily swings, I don't know. It seems to me that somewhere between the high 20 minutes and the low 40 minutes is where most people land day in, day out on the 10,000 swing challenge on those 500 swings. You could also train up in the winter for like a snatch challenge. I think the nice thing about snatch workouts is they don't last very long, at least in my experience. But there's the bell, set a timer for 10 minutes and see how many snatches you can do. That's the Secret Service snatch test. And I got to tell you, that's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it only takes 10 minutes. So you'll get out of there fast. So maybe in the winter, focus on, especially if you train inside, focus on those ballistic movements. And then as you slide out into spring, I think this will be a real fun time to do some of those. We have the armor building complex. That's great. But it'd be a lot of fun to also experiment with, a lot more volume on the presses and a lot more volume on the front squats. I think the kettlebell front squat really is an amazing exercise. What it makes my ab wall do as I'm holding those weights going up and down, it is such a total body tension exercise. And I think it actually helps build muscle too. So I love that idea. And then when summer comes around, hey, I'm not great on them like Pat Flynn, but he has a couple of books on, I think one's called Killer Complexes or something like that. But I'm sure there are, not a million exaggeration, there are hundreds of kettlebell complexes, probably on YouTube. They always have names like the Annihilator and things like that. And I think the Destroyer, and, you feel like you're in the middle of, those old time wrestling things when I was growing up. I think the summer is a really good time to do complexes. Some of the complexes, of course, I like in the summer to add sprints after, we call them lift and sprints. You do goblet squats, followed by a sprint. You can also do that in the summer. I like what you're saying here. I do, by saying just a double kettlebell clean and press and double kettlebell front squat, you sort of, you sort of tighten it up. But the other thing too, I just want to say is that you might want to pick certain periods of the year to learn some of the other kettlebell exercises, like the Turkish get-up, the windmill family. There's that two hands anyhow movement. There's the bent press. There are some fun kettlebell exercises. It's not as big as it was, but when I first got into kettlebells, juggling was something everybody seemed to be doing. At my cert, they taught us kettlebell juggling, and then I had a guy named JJ come over and help me. I would strongly suggest you do your juggling on a field somewhere where you don't have to worry about ruining the ground forever, because boy, do you. Great question. Let me know what you think. Start working out some ideas and organize something up for us. I really appreciate that. Thank you. We have a question from Chris. As someone who has never lifted before or done any strength training, am I setting myself up for failure with the armor building formula before some other basics that I may not be aware of? Well, if I was to pick the 3 easiest kettlebell exercises to learn, Chris, it would be the clean, the front squat, and the press. I mean, I think those are the simplest, and that's what the ABF is made of. I like your question. Now, the one thing I've learned about kettlebells is, whereas I can write a book, or we can pull out an article, or you can you can look at videos, but kettlebells to me are a lot like the Olympic lifts, where you could read every strength and health ever written. You could read all Tommy Kono's books. You could watch 1,000 videos, and there seems to be online now, thousands. But until you put your hand on the bar, keep it close to your body, snap it up over your head and stand up, it's hard to do the Olympic lifts, learn the Olympics without the doing part. So what might happen as you first experiment, in the armor building formula, the first 2 weeks are break-in. You do the armor building complex and high rep presses. But what I might want to think with you is just double that. And if you can, find somebody competent in your area to help walk you through it. But you'll find relatively quickly that once you start doing the movements, doing the exercises, practicing your presses and cleans and squats, that when you come back and look at an article again, you'll have such a better view of things. One of the things about the kettlebell community, I do have to warn you, is that they are a bit nitpicky. So be careful about posting your techniques, because there are sites online that you'll just get ripped to shreds. And I mean, every dot of minutia will be examined and cross-examined and argued endlessly in the discussion forum. But what you need to do is get those kettlebells, put them on the ground, bring them close to your body, clean them, press them, front squat them, put them down, rinse, lather, and repeat. Okay. Yeah. I think the ABF actually is a very friendly training system for a new person. So one of the reasons, when I came up with the armor building complex, one of the reasons was that we had an exhausted group, and what was great about that combo, the clean, the press, and the front squat, is an emotionally and mentally and physically drained person with appropriate load and certainly some level of wisdom can do them without really cranking up anything too badly. Okay. Gosh, I hope that helped. It's a good question. I think you can certainly do it. Thank you. We have a question from Tevin. Tevin, I wanted to ask your advice on ways I can help my grandfather remain healthy and mobile as father time takes its toll. My grandfather's a 74-year-old, 6'6", 220, 230, 240, big guy. Years from playing college basketball and life stressors have greatly affected his lower back and knees. One of the saddest things I see in my life is former high-end basketball players just trying to get through life. That game is wicked on the wheels. He has already had surgery on his lower back that has seemed to help him to extent. He goes to physical therapy regularly and stays up to date with doctor appointments. He consumes no alcohol nor smokes. I also trying to be mobile in the best of his ability. Recently, I recommended the glute loop with hip thrusts and clamshells for his lower back, as he already works out with resistance bands, dumbbells, and so it's also a running joke in the family that he's always been a big man with no butt or legs. So far, he says he feels good and feels okay enough to start implementing distance walking again. That's very impressive. I wanted your opinion for other exercise that could benefit him. The exercise I was going to recommend alongside the glute band was the goat bag drill. Yes. Light suitcase carry. Love it. Single arm press and goblet squats, but with no depth due to his knee, but enough in the benefits of the movement. With your history of working with elderly clients, would this be something beneficial, or would you recommend differently? Well, I got to tell you, this grandfather has a hell of a grandson. Yeah, Tevin. Yeah, you're awesome. Okay, a couple things. First, for those of you who might miss, I recommend Brett Contreras' glute loops. But the thing I like about the hip thrust on the ground, the clamshell on the ground, is that it's on the ground. And one of the things in your grandpa's age cohort is the ground is very dangerous. So every time he gets up and down off the ground doing these hip thrusts, it's a good thing in clamshells. So I would really, if you get a chance, really push those hip thrust clamshell combos. Those are amazing. When you said the goat bag drill, the suitcase carry, and the single arm press, I think that should be the foundation of what he does. You mentioned the goblet squat. Now listen, I love the goblet squat. You're welcome, world. But I would suggest anyway, we do this exercise so we call it the 6-point position. Your hands, your knees, and your feet are on the ground. In your grandfather's case, I would suggest having a thick pad under both knee. You probably get away with pillows, but we have those knee pads, not the kind, not like an elbow pad, but the big square knee pads. Put those, you want something thick and spongy underneath his wheels. Make sure his toes are digging in, dorsiflexion. Make sure his toes are digging into the ground when he does these. And I have videos of this, but it's easy to find. Just go to original strength and rocking, or just, I think I have a picture of it in just about every book I have. But he's going to be on his hands, knees, feet, digging in his toes, trying to stretch that big toe out, especially if you're trying to train that glute. You got to stretch out the big toe. That's just from the book Anatomy Trains, and I remembered it. But while he's sitting there, while he's on his hands and knees and his feet, he's going to just sit back into the squat and come forward. Now, if he has any shoulder issues, the 6-point rock is marvelous, at least in my case, for helping keep my shoulders really, the word usually is happy, but they're happier. I take one hand off the ground and I do those 6-point rocks with just one hand on the ground. And that has been marvelous for me. So I like the idea of the goat bag drill, the one-arm press, and the suitcase carry as kind of the lifting section. I would dose the hip thrust clamshell at the start, that lifting section. Maybe after that lifting section, do those 6-point rocks just as a practice drill. So another round of hip thrust clamshell and then go for a walk. So glute loop, hip thrust, your lifting idea, the rocks, another round of the glute loops, and go for a walk. Try to keep the training short enough with you that it stays on target. There's progression, there's excitement, there's enthusiasm. And on the walks, I would strongly suggest maybe even bringing a tape recorder or some kind of a recording device and ask him questions. And for example, I think it'd be great if you found out about every single game he ever played in college, and how fun would it be to get the films too, hear him talk, and then look at the films, get the story of his life, because as all of us know, our time here on this great blue-green jewel is short, and these walks are going to be marvelous. I hope that helped. I like what you're doing. I'm pretty impressed, and the fact that you've helped me a lot think about where I'm heading too. So thank you. All right. Our last question is from Kenneth, and he says, "Hi Dan. First, I'm so happy with the armor building formula. Thank you. Available at armorbuildingformula.com. The book has given me a newfound confidence to dust off my barbell in the garage and actually do something with it good. Now, my question is this. Should I be looking to get some one-on-one coaching before I undertake the Barbell ABC, the continuous clean and press program with the recommended beginner weights? Or more precisely, would you recommend against starting the program without coaching? Does the risk of potentially forming bad habits with the barbell outweigh the potential benefits of just picking the damn thing up and getting some work done with a low weight?" Kenneth, when I said those recommended weights, those are just recommended weights. You don't even have to start the program right away with the barbell. If you just want to go in and just practice these lifts. Now, what's interesting is that, up here, I've got some of the original books I ever learned how to lift weights with. And as I'm looking, whenever I look back there, I always want to, oh yeah, I forgot about that book. But a lot of us just learned how to lift just with these booklets. Okay, so with this one here, this is the first booklet I ever got. This is the Sears Ted Williams barbell set. And when you look at the first page exercises, it's funny because it looks just like the armor building complex, doesn't it? That's how I learned how to clean, like everybody else. And it's funny because Marty Gallagher and I were having this funny conversation one time about, because we didn't have videos in our youth, he went to his first weightlifting meet and he thought he was supposed to clean it with straight legs, because that's the picture he saw up here was this. See how the person just cleans up the straight legs. He didn't know you could squat underneath the bar or even power clean catch it. And so a lot of us taught ourselves. Now, I don't know of lots of sites that will have the continuous clean and press, but it's a very simple exercise. I know here on my YouTube channel, I do have some power clean stuff and some other exercises. But Kenneth, you're going to be surprised how quickly and easily you're going to learn this. Now, there might be some flexibility issues with the clean. There might be some some technical issues. It's going to take you a while. One thing I do want to say though, if you don't have the bar loaded, always deadlift it, and then you're going to just slide the weight down your thighs to just below the knee, and then clean it from there. Don't do it from the empty bar on the floor. You really have to get yourself in a weird position to pull that off. At least most of us anyway. But yeah, do I think you should get coaching? Yeah, absolutely. But if you can't, because it's just hard to find somebody, great. The problem you're going to have is there's not a lot of people who will teach the Olympic lifts, and you don't want to learn the Olympic lifts. You just want to learn how to pop it up for a clean and press overhead, which I think by the time you finish listening to this, you probably could have just gone to the gym and done a few sets and figured it out yourself. But hey, if you're still stuck, you reach back to me and I'll put together some kind of tutorial for you. Okay. Thank you. Wow. I can't believe it. That is it for this week. Episode 275. Listen, if you have questions, you'll send them to me at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. Each and every week I sit down and I answer your questions. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.